We've covered the head, pole, neck junction. We've covered the neck, shoulder, withers junction. We've covered the back and midsection. Now we're nearing the end. The hind end of the horse is very important. This is where all of the force transferred from the hind limbs into the body goes through this junction. We have the sacroiliac junction, where the two wings of the pelvis, the ilium, join the sacrum, and on each side of that are joints where they join. That's the sacroiliac. When they talk about the sacroiliac, that's what we're talking about. We have the sacrolumbar just in front of that, where the sacrum and the lumbar vertebra join. This is an area that has to have movement, twisting and dorsal movement when the horse steps under and when he moves his hind limbs. We have tension pulling on the hamstrings, pulling on the sacrum, which puts tension and torque on this junction. We have groin muscles underneath, and we have core muscles underneath which are involved in this junction. We're going to show points that are going to help to release tension in these structures, and then we're going to ask for movement. So the first point we're going to cover is just forward of the sacroiliac, which are these two bumps here. Just forward of that is where the sacrum and the lumbar join, and we're going to search for blinks in this area. Just behind that, we have these two bumps. This is what I call the sacroiliac points. We're going to search for responses in this area. We have under the tail points, one on each side, and some of these points we covered in Beyond Horse Massage. There are some additional points, but the under the tail points are under the tail on each side. They release tension in the sacrotuberous ligament, which attaches the sacrum to the tuber ischium. It's a big, flat, broad ligament under here, and it sends a signal to that to let go. It also helps release tension in the hamstrings, which are pulling on the sacrum. So I'm going to review as we go. Sacrolumbar, sacroiliac, under the tail. Then we have the pelvic point, which is, there's a ridge here, and Primo has some muscle over it, so it's hard to find. It's a bone, and it's a ridge here, and there's a point at the top of it here, and then there's a point at the bottom of it in this area, the pelvic point. This is an important point for one reason, because a lot of the abdominal fascia for the abdominal muscles attach along here. And when the horse is tense in this area and in the flank, this point will do a lot to help release that. We have the hip joint itself. Our hip socket is right here. So it's a little hard to find. If you run your hand pretty hard through the muscle, through here, you'll find a bump here. And that's the hip joint. An easier way to find it, oh bud, and he's telling me there's a little bit going on here, is to just draw a circle here. That's about where the Indians put their handprint when they paint their horse. Draw a circle here and search inside of that circle for the blink, because the horse will tell you exactly where it is. I'm giving you the general areas, and the horse is going to tell you exactly where to spend time. We have next the stifle point, just inside the stifle. If the stifle is our knee, if you feel a little bone here where your knee bends on the horse, that's where that'll be. You want to be careful not sticking your hand in here if the horse is sore. You'll start down here, make sure you're touching his flank, and then come in here, just inside the stifle is the stifle point. You'll feel a little bump, and that's the point. The stifle point inside is really important because the groin muscles attach here. That put tension on the groin, and when they get tight, they also put tension on the stifle. Tight groin muscles and stifles go together. In addition to the inside stifle point, you can search for responses anywhere outside of the stifle. If your horse has sore stifles, it's going to be easy to tell because he's going to pin his ears when you put your hand down here. If you spend some time on the outside of the stifle where he tells you, you can release tension in the muscles and the tendons and ligaments that are pulling on the stifle joint. When they pull on the stifle joint, they put torque or twist on it. And if you can keep the stifle, the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments healthy and relaxed in the stifles, you can avoid joint problems down the road. So this is a really important area. It's important that you be careful working in this area. As I said, if the horse is sore in the stifles and you just stick your hand in here, he's going to let you know with a not so subtle response. So we have sacrolumbar, sacroiliac, under the tail. We have the pelvic point, the stifle point, the hip joint. There's one more, the pubic symphysis point. Right between the two butt bones is where the pelvis joins together back here. And it's an area maybe that long, up and down. You can search for responses from the horse. You'll just hold his tail away, and with your thumb, very gently, egg yolk, we'll search for a blink in that area or some response. So those are the points we're going to cover. Once we've released tension with these points in the hind end, we want to ask for movement in the hind end. It's a very huge joint and junction, the sacroiliac and sacrolumbar junction. So it's hard to just get movement in it. One way is to follow the horse's relaxation of the leg. Every time the horse relaxes a leg like this, there's some slight movement in the sacrolumbar junction. And there's a slight twist in the sacrolumbar junction. There's a slight movement in the sacroiliac. And then slight twist in the sacrolumbar, and a slight twist in the lumbar spine. So this is all movement in a relaxed state. So whenever the horse drops the hip, you go to the points on that side and encourage another drop. So you can start with any of these points, and you don't have to do them in sequence. You'll just pick a spot and start on it. And then some horses will give you more responses here, and some will give you more here. You're going to do what the horse tells you. You're looking for, ideally, the horse to eventually rest one leg. When he does, you get some movement in the sacroiliac and in the sacrolumbar. And you go to the points on that side and encourage more and more movement. You'll notice that each time the horse shifts weight and drops a leg, you're going to have a steeper and steeper angle to slope to the hip. As he drops the hip, the tension releases and it drops further and further. I want to show you a little trick to help the horse drop one side. If you feel like the horse is ready to relax the hip and he won't, if you find the hip joint here, a point on the hip joint, right here, we're going to start with very light pressure. Often the horse will relax his own leg. The next step is to just add a tiny bit of pressure to the hip joint and encourage him to shift weight a little bit. Like that. Now, it's not always that easy, but a lot of times you can get the horse to drop his own hip. Now I'm going to search in the sacroiliac area for response, and this is encouraging him to let that go even more and more. So this would be an example of how you use, he's been releasing quite a bit in the right hind through this process. You can see by the way he stomps his leg, he's been doing it through the back and through the withers. I'm going to ask him to shift weight on the other direction. See if he'll do it. But ultimately, it's up to him where and when he shifts. You can just encourage it sometimes in the horse. Some horses will just relax very easily. Other horses are very guarded and they won't relax their hind end while you're doing this. So if he doesn't relax the hind end, just continue on with it. Because there's another way we can get movement in the muscles of this junction. I'm going to show you now a movement technique for muscles of the hind end called the accordion. The accordion it's a myofascial technique, and it's basically shortening the fascia, shortening a muscle in a subtle way. Muscle is interwoven and surrounded by fascia. It's like a sleeve around the muscle. It kind of is what divides the muscles into compartments, but more importantly, it's a communication system in the body. So you can affect fascia in one part of a muscle or one part of the body, and it's going to affect another part of the body. So with this accordion, we're shortening the fascia, which is giving a signal to the muscles to relax. And you don't have to know exactly where to do it. I'm going to give you some guidelines on where to do this, but the horse will tell you with his responses. For example, the accordion technique is used a lot in this area, along the sacrum, where these muscles, the hamstrings and some of the gluteals, attach along the sacrum, and they come down the leg. We can search along the sacrum for a blink, right there, and then down here for a blink, either palm or fingers, and shorten it. I'm going to just do very gentle this direction. If this were an egg yolk, I'm going to keep using the egg yolk as an example, you wouldn't be breaking it. I'm going to search again, shorten, hold, soften. Search along here, hold, soften, hold. I don't get much responses here. I'm going to show you some common areas that this accordion will help. This is probably the most common, from along the sacrum down along here somewhere. Another area would be the hip joint, where the middle gluteal is the big driving muscle of the horse. It attaches here at the hip joint, here and up here somewhere. He's not saying anything along here, but that's where we would do it. It's a gentle compressing. Another area that's very effective on horses that are very tight in the flank would be finding the pelvic point here Let me find a spot where he blinks, or yeah, right there. This one is very, very light. It's almost like paper, the actual technique. I'm going to find a blink here. Now I'm going to put my hand down here where the fascia of the abs comes and attaches here, and I'm going to shorten this way with the flat of my palm very lightly, almost just moving the hair. Right there. And hold and soften. And there's one more area that this works very well, is anywhere in the lumbar here, anywhere in the lumbar. In effect, when we're doing the muscle comb on the back techniques, we're doing half of an accordion. We're finding a spot along the spine where we get a blink. We're bringing the muscle slightly away. With this other hand, you can shorten the other direction with the muscle. So I'm doing that, whatever the horse responds to. So the lumbar area is another area where this accordion works. So those are the movement techniques that for the hind end are basically the accordions and getting the horse to release tension by dropping one hip and then dropping the other hip. I want to talk a little bit here about the groin muscles because they're part of the hind end, and we're going to go over this a little later, but there is a thing I call the mystery hind end lameness, and it happens when the signs of it are intermittent lameness behind, short-stridedness behind. The horse often can't keep a canter lead or is more uncomfortable on one canter than the other, one canter lead than the other. And the vets have checked the feet and the legs, the hocks, the stifles, and they don't find anything. But it often is a muscle spasm deep in the core muscles of the horse. And the psoas muscles are usually involved, and the groin muscles are involved, and often the sacroiliac joint itself is involved. Often you can make an improvement in that condition by putting some attention on releasing these deeper core muscles. And one cool thing about these points is that they work on deeper muscles. You're not working on a surface muscle, massaging a muscle. You're sending signals to deeper muscles to relax. So we'll go over this a little later with another horse, but I wanted to give you a brief overview. The key to making an improvement in this condition is taking your time and focusing on releasing the psoas area, the sacrum, any tension on the sacroiliac and the sacrum, and the groin muscles. And the groin muscles start at the stifle, and that's where they attach. So when you're doing the stifle point, you want to be in a safe position, but you can also continue on up inside the groin with the palm of your hand, searching for responses. And even in some cases, since it's even deeper, just resting there with your hand for a while without even getting any blinks, often you'll get a release of tension in the groin muscles. So we'll be looking at some other horses that might have stuff going on behind, and I'll talk more about how we're going to address this mystery hind end lameness with these techniques and the possible progression of the techniques. Keeping in mind again that the horse's responses are going to guide exactly how we do it on any particular horse.